I destroyed the one thing I was supposed to protect. Michael Reynolds' voice cracked with a raw, unbearable weight as he stared out the rain-streaked window of his penthouse. The city lights blurred into a haze, but inside his world was collapsing. How had he let fear and selfishness steal 8 years of his daughter's life? 8 years of lost memories, missed laughter, and silent nights filled with regret. The child he never knew, the family he abandoned, now staring him down with eyes that mirrored his own. Every dollar he'd earned, every deal he'd closed felt meaningless against the crushing truth that he had been a stranger to the only family that truly mattered. Michael was drowning in guilt, desperate for a chance at redemption, yet terrified that it might already be too late. What would you do if you were him, facing the biggest decision of your life, caught between the cold grip of your past mistakes and the fragile hope of forgiveness? Stay with me, because what happens next will shatter everything you think you know about love, loss, and the price of second chances. The truth Michael uncovers will shock you and change his life forever. Before dawn broke over the quiet town of Willow Creek, 8-year-old Emma was already awake. The fragile morning light seeped through the cracks of the worn wooden shutters as she moved silently in the kitchen, lighting the old wood stove. Her grandmother Margaret still slept in the next room, wrapped in a threadbare shawl. Emma was small for her age, but there was a fierce strength in her eyes, a resilience born from years of hardship she had never fully understood. She brewed the bitter coffee with practiced hands, the aroma filling the cramped room as she warmed yesterday's tortillas on the stove. These small routines grounded her moments of normalcy in a life that had been anything but. Selling vegetables at the market was their lifeline, just enough to scrape by. Emma tied the worn laces on her tattered sneakers, each knot a promise to herself to keep moving forward. She dreamed of a different life, one where she could trade her cracked books for new ones, where her dreams of becoming a doctor weren't just whispers in the wind. The weight of those dreams settled heavy on her small shoulders, but she carried them anyway, just as she carried the basket of tomatoes to the market. Far away in New York City, Michael Reynolds awoke in his penthouse suite overlooking the shimmering skyline. The soft hum of the city below contrasted sharply with the cold luxuries surrounding him. Today was the day he was meant to close the biggest deal of his career, a merger worth hundreds of millions. Every detail had been meticulously prepared: the Italian-tailored suit pressed to perfection, the French silk tie meticulously chosen, the polished leather shoes that had cost more than most people earned in a year. But as Michael stared out over the city, his mind was somewhere else entirely. Green eyes haunted his thoughts, eyes that looked strikingly familiar. It was a coincidence so sharp it cut through the veneer of his calculated life. At a humble vegetable stall far from the skyscrapers and boardrooms stood a girl with those very eyes, Emma. The image stuck in his mind, relentless and insistent. That same mole on her left cheek, the same defiant tilt of her chin. Michael's world tilted on its axis. Could this child be his? The thought was both terrifying and intoxicating. He had buried that past, the marriage to Caroline Morgan, his wife, who had died giving birth 8 years ago. A chapter he never wanted to reopen. A daughter he refused to acknowledge. His life had been about power, money, control. Children. They were obstacles, distractions that could ruin everything he had worked so hard to build. Yet here was Emma, living proof of a family he had abandoned. Driven by a turmoil he hadn't felt in years, Michael canceled his high-stakes meeting. His associates protested, but he was deaf to their demands. Instead, he hired a private investigator, a discreet man with a reputation for digging up secrets that some wished would stay buried. As the rain began to fall in slow, heavy drops, Michael set out for Willow Creek. His sleek car sliced through puddles, headlights cutting a path through the storm. The road twisted and turned, leading him away from the familiar luxury of New York into the unknown. Halfway there, a sudden patch of black ice sent his car skidding. Heart pounding, Michael wrestled the wheel, managing to stop just inches from the guardrail. He sat there breathing hard, soaked by the rain leaking in through the cracked window. In that moment of forced pause, he looked beyond the windshield, not at the slick asphalt, but at the world waiting on the other side. The simple homes, the quiet faces of people who lived without the shield of wealth. For the first time, the question gnawed at him: had all his money truly bought happiness? Meanwhile, in Willow Creek, life went on. Emma walked barefoot to school, clutching her worn sneakers in one hand, determined to make them last. At recess, a cruel boy mocked her shoes, pushing her to the edge. But Emma, despite her youth, stood firm, protecting a younger classmate from the bully's wrath. It was a small act, but it spoke volumes of the courage simmering beneath her fragile exterior. Back in the city, Michael's investigation yielded undeniable proof Emma was his daughter, a child he never knew living a life so far removed from his own. The discovery rocked him to the core. The walls of his carefully constructed world began to crumble, revealing a man desperate for redemption. Yet as he sat in his penthouse that night, the storm outside mirroring the turmoil within, Michael faced a brutal truth. Was he ready to confront the mistakes of the past? Could he step away from the empire he had built and embrace a daughter he had long ignored? The path ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. Everything would change. I know this is just the beginning, and the story will only grow deeper and more intense from here. I appreciate your patience with this pause in the narrative. Now I want to ask you, if you were in Michael's shoes, torn between a life of luxury and a newfound responsibility, what choice do you think you would make? Would love, family, and redemption be enough to pull you away from everything you've worked for? If this story moved you even a little, please show some love by liking and hearting this video. It really means a lot and helps us bring more stories like this to you. As the days slipped by, Michael found himself drawn deeper into the world he had so long avoided, a world where dirt-streaked hands and worn sneakers mattered more than tailor-made suits and roaring boardrooms. The bright city lights of New York faded into a distant memory as Willow Creek's quiet streets, rugged hills, and the steady rhythm of everyday struggle anchored his restless soul. Michael's arrival in Willow Creek was far from the triumphant homecoming he'd imagined in his fleeting fantasies. Instead, it was a cautious dance, each step tentative, burdened by years of absence and regrets too heavy to carry. When he first approached Margaret's vegetable stall, the woman's eyes narrowed with suspicion, her lips pressed into a thin line. He was a stranger, an outsider, intruding on a fragile life, carefully guarded by pain and loss. "Morning," Michael said, forcing a warm smile as he lifted a basket of tomatoes. Emma looked up from arranging the vegetables, her gaze sharp but curious. The resemblance hit him like a punch, those same piercing green eyes, the delicate curve of her cheek. "Here to buy tomatoes?" Emma asked, her voice cautious. "Yes," he replied. "I run a company in the city, and we're looking for suppliers of fresh produce. I thought I'd see what you had." Margaret folded her arms, skepticism etched into every wrinkle. "City folks don't usually come around here without an agenda," she said, her voice low but steady. Michael nodded, understanding the unspoken accusation. Yet beneath that, he sensed a deep protective instinct for Emma, for the fragile life they fought to maintain. It was a shield he'd long ignored, but now longed to breach. Over the next few weeks, Michael became a regular fixture at the market, buying vegetables at generous prices, always with a friendly word and a gentle smile. He offered to arrange weekly pickups, promising a steady income that could ease the crushing burden Margaret carried. But money could never buy trust. One rainy afternoon, as Michael walked the narrow lanes of Willow Creek, he spotted Margaret struggling to carry a heavy basket. Without thinking, he rushed over and took it from her grasp. As they walked together, the old woman winced, clutching her chest. "Are you all right?" Michael asked, alarmed. Margaret hesitated, then confessed she'd been feeling sharp pains lately. Without hesitation, Michael flagged down a passing car and rushed her to St. Mary's Regional Hospital. The diagnosis was a mild heart attack, caught just in time. That moment marked a turning point. Margaret's guarded walls cracked. The man who once seemed a cold businessman was now a lifeline. Emma watched quietly, sensing the shift as hope tentatively bloomed where only fear had lived before. But the shadows of the past were not so easily banished. Michael's old business partner, Victor Hayes, arrived in town unannounced, bearing thinly veiled threats. The merger Michael had abandoned was no small matter, and Victor made it clear if Michael didn't return to the ruthless pursuit of profit, the secrets buried beneath their empire would surface. Whispers of unethical deals, the exploitation of workers, and the sacrifices made in the name of success hung like a guillotine over Michael's head. Faced with a harrowing choice, Michael felt the old hunger for power clawing back, promising safety and dominance. But then he looked at Emma, her bright eyes full of hope, her small hands clutching her books, and the scales tipped again. One evening alone in his modest rented room in Willow Creek, Michael wrestled with his demons. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the distant howling wind. His reflection in the cracked mirror stared back, a man torn in two. Could he really walk away from the empire he'd built? Could he risk losing everything for a child he barely knew? Memories flooded in the nights, arguing with Caroline, her pleading for a family, his cold refusals. The night she left pregnant and terrified, leaving behind a promise he never kept. "I was scared," he whispered to himself, voice breaking. "Scared I wasn't enough, that I'd fail them both." The next morning, Michael approached Margaret's modest home with a resolve forged in pain and hope. He found her in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she prepared their simple meal. "I need to be honest," Michael began, voice steady but vulnerable. "I'm not just a buyer or a businessman. I'm Emma's father." The room fell silent. Margaret's eyes flashed anger, grief, and years of betrayal simmered beneath her calm exterior. "You abandoned my daughter. You left Caroline alone when she needed you most. How can you come here now expecting forgiveness?" Michael swallowed hard, feeling the sting of each word. "I was wrong. I was selfish. But I want to change. I want to be there for Emma, for you, for our family." Tears welled in Margaret's eyes, but she stood firm. "Words are cheap. You'll have to prove it every day. No more promises, no more lies. If you hurt her again, you'll answer to me." Michael nodded, the weight of her challenge settling like a mantle on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Emma watched the exchange from the doorway, heart pounding. Could this man, this stranger, really be the father she dreamed of? Could she trust him after all these years? As the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky in hues of golden fire, Michael made a silent vow. No matter the cost, no matter the battles ahead, he would fight to be the father Emma deserved. Thank you for staying with me through this emotional journey so far. The story will continue to unfold with even greater intensity and surprises. Now I'd love to hear from you. If you were Michael, faced with the choice between a ruthless career and the fragile chance to rebuild a family, what would you do? Would you dare to risk it all for love and redemption? If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking and hearting this video. Your encouragement means the world and helps us share more powerful stories like this with you. The seasons turn slowly in Willow Creek, each one carrying with it a new layer of healing, forgiveness, and hope. Michael Reynolds was no longer the distant businessman who once measured life in deals and profits. He had become something far more profound, a father determined to make up for lost time, a man learning the true meaning of family. The early mornings were now filled with laughter and shared breakfasts. Emma's burnt eggs and scrambled attempts at cooking were no longer small failures, but treasured memories. The worn pages of her tattered books were replaced by new ones, gifted by Michael with quiet pride and a steady hand. The modest home near Margaret's was filled with the sounds of light footsteps racing through the halls, whispered bedtime stories, and the gentle hum of everyday moments that once seemed insignificant, but now meant everything. Yet the path to this new life had not been without its shadows. Michael faced doubts not only from those around him, but within himself. Old fears clawed at his heart during quiet nights. Could he truly be the father Emma deserved? Was this sudden change just a fleeting dream? Or was he capable of sustaining this love through every trial? One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the hills, Michael sat with Emma on the porch swing. She rested her head on his shoulder, her small hand entwined with his. "Dad," she whispered, "do you think Mom would be happy to see us like this?" Michael swallowed the lump in his throat, looking out over the fading light. "I believe she'd be proud. Proud that we found each other again and chose love over fear." Emma smiled softly. "Sometimes I still worry you'll leave, that it's just a story, not real life." Michael tightened his grip gently. "I won't ever leave you. Not now, not ever." That promise wasn't just words, it was a vow etched into the very core of his being. The community began to notice the change in Michael. The man who once slipped in and out like a shadow now stood tall among neighbors, attending local events, helping repair the school, and even organizing a small library stocked with books for the children. Willow Creek had slowly become not just a place to visit, but a home. And then came the letter, a fragile yellowed envelope Margaret had kept safe for all these years. It was from Caroline, written shortly before she passed. Michael had hesitated, hands trembling, as he unfolded the delicate paper. In her careful script, Caroline spoke not of blame, but of understanding. She wrote of the fear she saw in Michael, the man she loved, but who was too afraid to embrace the family they had created. She asked him to be brave, not just for her, but for Emma. Her words were a balm to his wounded heart. She spoke of forgiveness, of hope, and of the powerful bond between father and daughter that no amount of time or distance could sever. That night, Michael sat alone, the letter pressed to his chest. He felt the weight of the past lift slightly, replaced by a quiet determination. The mistakes he'd made were many, but the future was still his to shape. The years that followed were filled with small victories. Emma blossomed under Michael's unwavering love. Her grades soared, her laughter grew louder, and her dreams stretched farther than ever before. Michael watched her with awe, humbled by the chance to witness her becoming the woman Caroline had always hoped she'd be. The ultimate test came when Michael faced a choice, whether to sell his business interests in the city and commit fully to life in Willow Creek, or to continue juggling the high-stakes world he once ruled. He chose Emma. With the support of the community and Margaret's watchful eyes, Michael sold his shares, investing in the town's growth and, most importantly, in his family. He traded skyscrapers for rolling fields, boardrooms for school plays, and profit margins for quiet evenings under starlit skies. On the anniversary of Caroline's passing, the entire town gathered to celebrate not just Emma's birthday, but the healing of a family once broken. Michael stood beside Emma and Margaret in the town square, surrounded by neighbors who had witnessed their journey. As balloons floated into the clear blue sky and children's laughter echoed, he realized that the fortune he sought was never in his bank account. It was here in the bonds of love, forgiveness, and second chances. He had found what truly mattered. As the story closes, I want to leave you with two questions. What do you think is the hardest part about truly changing for the better? Is it forgiving others, forgiving ourselves, or something else entirely? And if you had the chance to make amends with someone from your past, would you take it? Why or why not? Please share your thoughts below. I'm eager to hear your perspectives. Also, let me know what you think of this story if you loved it. Comment no. 3 if you feel it could be better. Comment number 1, and if it was just okay, comment number 2. Don't forget to tell me which country you're watching from. If this story touched your heart, please like, heart, and share this video so more people can experience its message of hope and healing. Your support means everything. Thank you for being part of this journey.